Alright, here we go with the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, guys. So we're continuing on from where we last left off in the investigation to help out Gina Lestrade. So I hope you all continue to enjoy watching. Let's see this through, guys. Alright, guys, and we are back. You can find one of these folding contraptions in lots of households in the capital currently. But if these little machines are so affordable, surely there's no need to go around staring cross-eyed at pictures like you hate them. But it's much more satisfying to be able to see the effect with your own eyes. Well, I think so in any case. Stereoscopic pictures, I'd never even heard of them until yesterday. You certainly learned a lot about them, but I wonder if it's knowledge that I'll ever actually need. Alright, we got that in the court record now. Which reminds me, the back of this photograph was used to write the pawnbroker's ticket that Gina brought in here yesterday. And the other photograph came from the pocket of McGilded's overcoat. We need to examine everything thoroughly, don't forget. Alright, if that's the case, then I want to... examine this. Look on the back of this print here, there's something written on it. 13th of February, 9 p.m. Article deposited, 1 small box. Loan amount, 10 shillings. Redemption deadline, 13th of April, 9 p.m. So this photographic print is a redemption ticket for an article that was deposited 2 days prior to the incident on the omnibus, it would seem. Yes, a small box. That doesn't tell us much about it, does it? Perhaps it contains some valuable mementos. I can't help wondering. Presumably, Mr. McGilded never redeemed the article in question since he still had the ticket. So, isn't it possible that the box is still present somewhere in the shop? Ah, yes. If it's something McGilded deposited, we need to investigate. Okay, now we got this updated. Pawnbroker's ticket box. Alright, and now... well, now that we have this, we can actually present it. Would you mind if I showed you this, Iris? It's just a boring old thing, really, but... oh, I don't really like boring things. Ah, looks like Japanese modesty is easily misinterpreted by young Western children. I mean, who does like boring things? No one wants to be shown something boring. Come to think of it, you're always introducing things with this is boring, but it's a bad habit. You should stop it. I'll be sure to let the entire population of the Empire of Japan know on my return. That's a good one. Tissue papers, blood samples folio. Interesting. Hold on a second. Ah, the other one. What is this? Mr. Naruhodo, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's something rather troubling here. I have noticed. The red smear, you mean? Yes. It looks like blood, doesn't it? I wonder if Susato-san picked up on that. Well, in that case... yes, we need Iris. We should show this to her before we forget. Ah, got you. Okay. Got you. Oh, that looks like blood. I would say it's from a gloved finger, almost certainly a glove made of leather. Well, don't worry, Bruno. You can leave the rest to me. Oh, that one turned purple. Look at that. Yes, that's a color we haven't seen before, isn't it? We simply must add it to the portfolio of blood samples. It could be important. It could be an important clue. Although, it would be nice to find out whose blood these different colors correspond to at some point. Well, this particular stain of blood. Oh, you've had an idea, haven't you? Do you know whose blood this is? I think I do. Yes, I have an idea whose blood it is. Not from the color term, but with a little deduction. That's right, I think it's clear. Iris, you know as well? You first, Reno. Who do you think it belongs to? Alright, I believe that this is the blood of Thrice-Fired Mason. Thrice-Fired Mason? You don't sound very sure of yourself the way you trailed off there. Well, it was 2 months ago now, that case. And of course I never met the victim, so I'm struggling to remember his name. He was definitely thrice-fired though. The victim of the omnibus case? Yes, his name was indeed Mr. Thrice-Fired Mason. But that would mean that this bloodstain was left on the ticket 2 months ago. Yes, I think it was. Gina brought this ticket here to win the banks yesterday. I'm suggesting that the bloodstain was already on it at that time. So it's a smear of blood from the time that Mr. Mason was killed 2 months ago. Something else is coming back to me now. Mr. McGilden was also wearing leather gloves that night. Now I ask you, so what good-hearted soul wouldn't rush to help a fellow bleeding from his stomach? I wasn't about to start worrying about my gloves now, was I? I reached out to give the man a hand. It certainly does look like a leather glove thumbprint, this mark. But we know that Mr. McGilden had no injuries at the time anywhere on his body. From which we can conclude that any blood on the glove belonged to the victim, Mr. Mason. Mr. Naruhodo, you sound just like Mr. Sholmes. Minus the quirky slip-ups, I hope. Yes, I think you're right, Reno. Very well. Let's make a note of this. Ooh. Updated. Oh, even better. Okay. Can we examine... Is this the storeroom? Look around. Alright, let me see something. Let's move. Okay. The storeroom where pawned items are kept. Yep, that's where we need to go. April 16, Windibank Storeroom. Poor Iris. She's clammed up completely. Iris is bound to find this difficult. After all, Mr. Windibank's life was taken in this very room only last night. Wait, Inspector! What is it now, Sunshine? You took one look at me and tried to run away. You think a Scotland Yard inspector would run away from some jumped-up little defense lawyer, do ya? Well... I've never seen her ladyship looking like that before, is the thing. I didn't know what to say to her. So you weren't running away from me. You were running away from a 10-year-old. I'm afraid this is all a little much for young Iris. Young girls. Yeah, also young girls. Some gentle reassurance might go a long way, perhaps, Inspector. Huh? Don't trouble yourself unduly, your ladyship. I mean, at least you're not dead, are you? I don't think that went very well. Why? Look, I'm in the middle of an investigation here, Sunshine, and I told you not to get under my feet. And we have investigating to do ourselves. Yes, I'd like to hear more of what the socially inept inspector has to say. Oh, Hurley. and inquire into how Mr. Shum's operation is going. Alright, let's converse, sir. Scene of the crime. So, Inspector, what do you make of the crime scene here? Pshaw! You got eyes, haven't you? Use them. It is what it looks like. Nothing more, nothing less. Iris, could you lend me a hand? So, Gregson, what do you make of the crime scene here? Oh yes, your ladyship. Do allow me to humbly explain. Last night, shortly after the hour of 1 o'clock in the morning, Scotland Yard police attended the scene. The one and only door to the storeroom was found locked from the inside. So it was locked from the inside. The lock appears to be broken now, though. Was that the police officers doing? Quite right, ma'am. Quite right. We took the liberty of smashing the door in as humbly as possible. Oh. As you can see, the victim was discovered prostrate on the floor, thus-wise. And next to the aforementioned body, we discovered the vile gutter child. Are you talking about Ginny? She's my friend, you know, Inspector. Miss Lestrade, the hapless girl, was curled up on the floor, dead to the world. She's still alive, you know. Yes, when I saw her, she appeared to be unconscious. And I'm afraid to say she had the gun that was used in her hand. No! Presumably, it's the gun that's still down there on the floor now. In her pocket, we found the key to the door as well. What? The key to the storeroom? And you say the storeroom had been locked from the inside, Inspector? Correct. All of which leaves her ladyship's friend in something of a sticky situation, I'm afraid. Obviously, my personal opinion is that it's all some sort of misunderstanding. Of course it is, Inspector. Of course it is. Alright. Gregson, do you know anything about Hurley? Is the operation finished? Is Hurley alright? Is he? The thing is, don't mince your words, Inspector, please. You don't mean to say that Mr. Sholmes is... No, the operation's done and dusted. It's just that, well, out with it. Yes, ma'am! They use something called generic anesthetic. It's the latest thing. Renders the whole body insensitive. The whole body? Anesthetized? Is that even possible? It means the operation can be completed while the patient is fast asleep. Goodness, in the Empire of Japan, we can just manage to provide laughing gas for a tooth extraction. The trouble is, the latest thing isn't always the greatest thing, if you follow my meaning. They couldn't get the medication to work at first, so it took hours for him to nod off, or so I hear. And now that the op's finished, they can't get him to wake up, apparently. Oh my. No one knows if it's the anesthetic still in his system, or if the bloke's just plain exhausted. But anyway, all they can do is stand back and watch until he comes around again. Hurley. The moment he opens his eyes, your ladyship, I swear I shall get word to you. What a surprise. Even in matters of life and death, Mr. Sholmes has to do things his way. Alright, since we're done talking to this guy, let's examine some stuff. Look at all these articles that have been deposited in the room. The room is stuffed full of them. I can't believe how many there are. A bicycle, a gramophone, musical instruments, even some enormous paintings. Look! Pieces of different people's lives quietly gathering dust in here together. There's something very peaceful about the atmosphere in here. Or at least there would be, if not for the chalk outline on the floor and the policemen shuffling around. Not much I can do about that, sunshine. What about this bad boy? Out of all the articles in this storeroom, this is the only thing that shows any sign of being ransacked. Ha! What is it, Iris? That's the box file that my manuscript was being kept in. Oh! Iris' unpublished story, The Hound of the Baskervilles. Surely that's not what all this... Sorry, Iris, but if you ask me, he sold it. Without telling you. We must check inside the box at once. Yes. Ah! It was there. Iris' story was there. Really? It was? Well, that's good news, isn't it, Iris? Yes. I mean, of course I believed Hurley when he said he deposited here, but still. It's a relief to actually see it. Really? Because that's not a very well-hidden frown. Iris' manuscript has been entered into the court record. How about the gun? This is a revolver. A real one. And quite possibly the murder weapon used to take Mr. Windibank's life. What's the matter, Susie? You and Runo look like you're about to faint. Well, it's just that I've rarely seen a gun in the flesh. And I've had issues with guns in the past. But anyway, we saw Mr. Windibank with this yesterday, didn't we? I shall have to take my own life. It must be the same gun. And last night, when I looked through the spy hole in the door to the storeroom here, that was the same gun I saw in Gina's hand. Mr. Windibank told us that he only ever had a single bullet loaded in his revolver, didn't he? Well, it's empty now. The one and only bullet he had in his gun has been fired. So we can be fairly certain that only a single shot was fired from this revolver. Okay. Oh. I investigated thoroughly, but I can't find anything out of place. Alright, let me use the... What can I find here? There has to be other things I can examine here. Oops. Can I examine the keys? I didn't want to press that. Alright, I think I examined everything, but see blood. The police have marked the position of the body with a chalk line. Poor Mr. Windibank, he was a nice old man. Well, he was shot just once through the heart. Most likely the fellow died instantly. He wouldn't have felt a thing. This must be his blood then. Ah! I don't like to ask at such a wretched time, Iris, but I wonder if perhaps... Don't worry, Susie. I'm ready for action. Blue. Interesting. So now we know the color the chemical turns when it reacts with Mr. Windibank's blood. And it doesn't match our analysis of the bloodstain we found in the main shop. No, but let's add this sample to the others we already collected anyway. Inspector, what do you make of this? Ah, what have we here then? A redemption ticket for an article deposited here, is it? Looks like someone ran out of office stationery and wrote the ticket on whatever paper was to hand. Yes, this is the ticket from McGilden's overcoat. The one that little diver turned up with yesterday. Oh, actually, no, it's not. Really? Think you know better than me, do you? No, I didn't mean to, Bruno's right, Gregson. It isn't the same ticket. Of course it isn't. Of course it isn't. I never doubted you, your ladyship. So, what's all this about then, if I might be so bold as to ask? This is a second ticket. A second one? It seems that Mr. McGilded, in fact, had another article in the storage here at Windibanks. Is that right? I think we need to discuss this further with Inspector Mr. Naruhodo. With the Inspector. Oh good, because he's never so easy to talk to. Ah, that's what we were missing. I should have presented him the ticket. That's why I know where to go. This ticket was in one of the pockets of Mr. McGilded's overcoat. Huh? You mean to tell me? Yes, there was more than just the music box disc, it seems. I should have insisted on the lads taking it back to the yard and examining it properly. Well, according to the details in this ticket, Mr. McGilded deposited another article here with Mr. Windibank. Yes, I can see it written here. A small box, was it? Do you have any idea where it is, Gregson? Any idea at all? It's another article belonging to Mr. McGilded. It could be an important clue. Well, yes, I suppose it could be. Please stop looking at me with those big turquoise eyes, all full of hope and expectation. It's too much pressure. I'll lose my marbles, I will. I'll go barking. This is no time for dog impressions, Inspector. That's enough sauce from you, sunshine. There is one thing that springs to mind. According to this ticket, the redemption deadline's already passed, hasn't it? Oh yes, of course. Articles are only held for 2 months. So the small box will no longer be in here then. That's right, it's been forfeited. Which means it could be on the shelves in front of the shop where the forfeited items are offered for sale. Yes, the shelves in the front. We must search for them at once. You're wasting your time. Oh, there are dozens of little boxes out there, hundreds even. We can't possibly know which one might have been McGilded's. That information's not written in the ledger. Well, I think we should at least have a look just in case. Of course, your ladyship, of course. Very sensible of you, I'm sure. This is getting old. I nearly jumped out of my skin there. How come Mr. Windibank sets such a wicked trap? Wow, wicked trap. The W's, man. The W's. I doubt he set out to scare anyone. Is that really the time? I think perhaps we should pay Gina another visit soon. Oh? Her trial's tomorrow. We must establish whether or not you will be defending her. I think we should ask her one more time. She may have changed her mind. Don't you remember, Runo? You told her she could rip up the representation papers if she didn't want you to be our lawyer. Gosh, it's suddenly hard to read. Really? Did I say that? Yes, you did. The deadline for submitting the paperwork is fast approaching. He's starting to sound a lot like Sholmes now. In that case, we had better hurry back to the prison and talk to Gina again. Alright guys, I'm going to end the video here for today. Thank you all for watching. When we come back, we're going to finally speak to Gina, and hopefully she insists on letting me defend her, or represent her for that matter. Same deal. So, anyways guys, thank you for watching. Until the next one.